Good morning. This is Randy B. Kelley speaking to you. My last message from Goodsell United Methodist Church in Lynette, as well as Power Chapel United Methodist Church in Lafayette. I am thankful for being able to serve in this area. I thank the community as well as the city officials of the wonderful things that they have done, all of the kind words that has been spoken, all of the accolades that has been given. I want to thank the Community Action Agency Director, David Bowell, from coming all the way from Alex City to present that award. I also want to thank the city of Lynette for their proclamation about starting the Greater Valley Juneteenth celebration, which I'm most proud of due to the fact that it is a unique Juneteenth. It was highly structured, led by Carmen McCoy and Trudy Johnson. And in fact, I can't say enough about those two, especially with the work that they did, the powerful team that we had, and we just thank God. And it's the reason why it was so unique, because it was our theme was educate while we celebrate. And I've always been under the presupposition, Janice, that we break too much and we educate too little. And our Juneteenth, we looked at it as the same thing as the Passover was for the original Jews. We didn't have all that hooching and smooching and hugging and rubbing and drugging and thugging. It was basically a family-oriented activity that brought this entire community together, and we thank God. We thank the city of West Point for their proclamation also, because our Juneteenth was in two states, both Alabama and Georgia. We had activities in both states, and also we had essay poster contests for the children for the entire area. And of course, Kia Motor at one juncture gave awards for first, second, third place, and it was very multicultural. And we had not only black children participating, white children participating, but also even the nature of our Juneteenth. We had Chinese, Japanese, Native Americans, white, black, country and western, all participated. And really, we thank God for that vision and insight. And I have always been blessed with powerful leaders, visionary leaders to make a difference. Prior to coming here in Anniston, I served as the NAACP chair. We had not only a college chapter, we had a high school chapter. We sued quite a few folk for not doing right. And not only that, we even led a protest on Anniston Army Depot, got a black man hired back who had been terminated based on job discrimination. And I'm just talking now, just to get more people on the line. But I just wanted to bring us up to date, because we just did start pastoring here. But we had a glorious career, unlike few ministers that I can think of, not just in this state, but in the nation. When I came to Anniston, they interviewed the civil rights icon, Reverend N.Q. Reynolds. N.Q. Reynolds integrated the library. He's Maudie Taylor's brother, who is a leader with the Baptist Bourne East District here in Lynette. And he integrated the public library along with Bobby McCain, who preached here at Goodsell for us, celebrating the merger. He was interviewed for me coming to Anniston. I had been a follower of Reverend Reynolds, as well as Reverend John Nettles, the president of the SCLC who were close friends with Reverend Joe Lowry. That's where I first met Reverend Joe Lowry, whose family attended the church I'm going to Huntsville, the pastor, Lakeside. And Reverend Reynolds, he really gave me a good report in the Anderson Star. And we adopted a middle school class. I had 2 talk shows in Anderson. I had one on a religious station, one on a secular station. It was called Tell It Like It Is. And I was going into my office one day and I got a call from Canada. And it's from TV1. They had got a recommendation for TV1 to call me when they came to the South. They were doing films on churches that was impacting the community around the country. Jeanette. I'm going to talk about Gaston in a second, Jeanette. But they were interviewing pastors and churches that were making a difference, and I had to organize it. They wanted 30 churches. I called the pastors. I sent out letters to them, and some of them said they wasn't doing anything to impact the community. And I've always had a problem trying to figure out churches that are not doing anything to impact the community when Jesus changed the world. And so I couldn't find 30, and I really couldn't find 20. But when they came, they took those 20, interviewed them, and out of all the ones they interviewed, they came out and picked our church as the top church for the film in that area. And you can see that on my YouTube. You can see that specific film that they shot, excerpts from it. I'm going to put the whole film, Annie, who's one of my members from Birmingham, on YouTube. So they shot that specific documentary. We had tutorial program, we had mentorship program, we had a partnership with the library where about 4 of our boys read over 60 books during the summer. And so we've had powerful ministries. But in Gaston, my home church, which was a tough church, and Jeanette is on the line, on this watch, and she can recall that it was a tough church. My mentor, Q.D. Adams, did not play. And he would tell you in a minute, we don't have all the religion that we ought to have, but you don't have no religion to give us, and it's going to take all religion that it takes for you to stay here. And the average preacher only stayed there 2 years or less. Some stayed 6 months, some stayed 6 weeks. One stayed 1 hour. But Gussa was a tough church. I was blessed to stay there for 10 years in my home church. And they said something about me that has always guided me in my ministry. Being involved in the community, they said we wanted him to pastor because he's involved in the community, and you cannot beat him loving his people. That's been what has driven me these years. And in Gaston, we stopped a $44 million highway from going through the black community. Forced a meeting with Governor Siegelman at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and met with the federal and the state Department of Transportation. I got the seed money for a housing development, which is on East Broad Street, named it after the man I'm talking about, Q.D. Adams, where there are 17 houses in that. We brought tens of thousands of dollars into our community and led a movement to remove the Confederate statues many years ago, Jeanette, in Gaston, when it was unpopular to do so. And I made the statement that sending black children to school named after the Ku Klux Klan and Confederates is the same thing for Jews in Germany, riding their children up and down the street, as well as sending their children to school named Hitler High School. And I told them we need to get a bulldozer and push that statue off into the Coosa River that was on the city square in Gaston, Alabama. And when the press was ready to do that, then I would be right with them. But even that same press had a poll, and they chose me as one of the top 10 movers and shakers in my city. Gave me a proclamation for outstanding leadership, like I've got a proclamation for outstanding leadership here in Lynette, a proclamation for outstanding leadership in Lafayette, and an outstanding leadership proclamation in Huntsville, from the city of Huntsville, from the mayor and the city council, where I'm getting ready to go to pastor. And so we thank God for a powerful, powerful ministry. But even in my first church, I boycotted a bank. There might be somebody here in Huntsville. I led a protest on a bank, and we threatened to close the bank down and got one of my members hired back who had been fired based on racial discrimination. And so the Lord has blessed us in a mighty way. And I don't feel Cynthia no ways tired. I want to look at a word from Luke, the 15th chapter. It's a familiar story, but I want to talk about it in an unfamiliar way. Looking at the 11th verse, Jesus said, a certain man had two sons. The younger son said to his father, Father, give me the share of the inheritance. Then the father divided his estate between them. Soon afterward, the younger son gathered everything together and took a trip to a land far away. Then he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. When he had used up his resources, a severe shortage arose in that country, and he began to be in need. He hired himself off to one of the citizens of the country, who sent him in the fields to feed pigs. He longed to eat his fill from what the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything, Adrian. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have more than enough food, but I am starving to death? I will get up and go to my father and say to my father, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer deserving to be called your son. Take me on as your hired hand. So he got up and went to his father, Lynetta. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion. His father ran to him, hugged him, and kissed him. And then his son said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer deserved to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, quickly, bring out the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, fetch the fatted calf and slaughter it. And Kathy, he said, we must celebrate with feasting because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and now is found. And they began to celebrate. And I want to talk as a subject for my final message here is going in a different direction. Going in a different direction. People can give you good advice. When I was called to preach or announce and acknowledge my call to preach, there was one lady who told me, always go. She says, always pray. She says, take care of your health, because if you lose your health, you won't be any good to yourself or anyone else. She said that there are some things that will happen to you that seem like they're bad things. But Nisi, when you look back over it, God will be in it all the time, and it will be a blessing in disguise. But I've come to understand also that experience is a great teacher. The best university you can attend is the University of Adversity, because some lessons cannot be taught, they got to be caught. No one can teach you anything unless you're willing to learn. And the Bible does not tell us why this young man left home. Maybe he was not satisfied with where he lived. Maybe it was the way he was brought up. Maybe it was his friends that was not smart enough. Maybe it was the custom when his father died that an older brother inherited the nest egg in the family. Maybe the church was too dull. Maybe he did not like the music in the church. Maybe the family argued too much, or maybe he was just a wild child. But for whatever reason, he had made up in his mind that he was going out to meet some new people and see some new places and see some new faces and some new spaces. And many of us have been there and done that. Many times in our lives, we can be so blinded by wherever we want to go until we can't see where we're going. And this boy became restless, and he decided to leave home. And there's no evidence that his father argued with him when he decided to leave home. The father just gave him his stuff. And let me tell y'all something. That's how God does us. God is not going to force us to stay in bad places and bad situations, around bad people that wear us down and wear us out and steal our joy. And I believe this young boy had been thinking about leaving home for a long time. And he was just waiting at the right time to have this conversation about leaving home. And if you have a problem, I would advise you to do the same thing. Have a talk with your daddy. And when you're going through some stuff, you can't see your way out of that stuff. Talk with your daddy. And I'm not talking about Tammy, your earthly daddy. I'm talking about your heavenly daddy. Somewhere down the line, I used to hear that old choir saying, just a little talk with Jesus will make everything all right. Tell him all about your trouble. He will hear your faintest cry. He will answer by and by. And some of the lessons we can learn from this boy is he had courage. He had to have some courage to leave home. He had high hopes. He had big dreams. And that is one of the strengths of young people, because it is hard to tell young people what they can't do, because they don't have sense and enough to know in laws that they can't do it. And so they'll find a way to do it, because young people who have been inspired at home and in the church, the sky is the limit, Cindy. But sometimes when people get old, they start thinking that they can't do anything. That is why the 7 last words of the church is, we've never done it that way before. And that's why we need to do it that way, because we've never done it that way before. And there are too many people who claim that they are following Jesus and are not going anywhere, Kelley. They live life with no accomplishments, no achievements, no dream, no aim, no ambition, no clue as to what they want to do. And that is why I wanted to lift up this boy, because he had courage to go somewhere. In the movie Roots, Kunta Kinte is going through some manhood training, and he is challenging one of the warriors in the community that's teaching him how to be a man. And this man kept slamming him down on the ground, and he asked Kunta Kinte, what kind of courage did he have? Did he have a warthog's courage, or did he have a tiger's courage? And Kunta Kinte said, I have a tiger's courage. He said, no, you have a warthog courage. He said, but one thing about courage, only God can give you courage. And I know there's some folks who are out there waiting at home for an opportunity to do better. But there are others living at home who are happy to live off the parents' nickels and dimes. They're satisfied living in the parents' house, eating the parents' food, sitting on the parents' couch, watching the parents' television. And for the first time in our history, there are so many satisfied living lives, uninformed, unemployed, uneducated, and unmotivated. There are too many of us paralyzed by fear, and too little of us that are motivated by faith. But this young man, Mary, got up and got out the house because he had courage.
He knew you can't sail your boat in a bathtub. Jamie, you can't put your Titanic in a shower. You got to get out in the water where the water is deep. You got to get out there where the mountains are high. You got to get out there where the resources are few. You got to get out there where the friends are few. And sometimes you have to have the courage to step out on faith. And this boy had courage as an advantage, but he had carelessness as a disadvantage. There was nothing wrong with leaving home, but the problem was when he left his home train and engaged in what the Bible called riotous living. He had been raised one way, but he was living another way. And before we come down too hard on this boy being careless, we're also careless. We're careless in our faith. We are careless when we turn on each other and not turn to each other. We are like that song Johnny Taylor used to sing, I'm getting careless with my love. We are careless in the way we love each other. If you can't find love in the church, you can't find love anywhere else. The Bible tells us that God is love, and it's dangerous cause to get careless with our love. This young man had a conversation with his dad. He was courageous. He was careless, but was also conscious. He took a conscious look at his mistake. He was like the 7 billion mistake-making machines on the face of the earth that's called human beings. He lost his money. In fact, he lost his possessions, but he didn't lose his mind. He still was conscious, even though he was in a bad situation. He had a barnyard as his neighborhood. Pigs was his neighbor. Slop was his cologne. Well, he had come down all the way from a palace down to a pig pen, where the pigs could have been, pig pen could have been a place of pity, but it became a place of power for this boy. He could have had a one-man pity party in the pig pen. He had gone down as low as he could go when he turned, but he turned that place of aggression, suppression, oppression, depression around by going in a different direction. Given that he knew some places that man don't allow U-turns, but he knew that God always allows U-turn, because I heard him say, I will arise and go to my father. I know my earthly father might not be living. My earthly father might have made mistakes. My earthly father might not be as perfect as he ought to be. My earthly father might have been missing in action, but let me tell y'all, I have a heavenly father. And for all indications, the daddy was waiting on his child to come home, because the Bible says when the boy was a long way off, his father saw him and ran and whooped some love on him and hugged him and kissed him and gave him a robe and ring and some shoes and ordered for the fatted calf to be killed so that everybody in town could party down from sun up to sundown, because his son was going in a different direction. And the boy did what Stacy Lattisaw used to sing when I was cutting the food. I found love on a two-way street, because the last time the father saw his son, he saw his back, but this time when the father saw his son, he saw his face. George, the last time the father saw his son, he saw him frown, but this time he saw his son, he saw him smile. The last time the father saw his son, he saw him in sorrow, but this time he saw his son. He saw him enjoy the last time the father saw his son. He saw him leaving home, but this time the father saw his son. He saw him coming back. The last time the father saw his son, he loved him enough to let him go. But this time the father saw his son, he loved him enough to take him back. The last time the father saw his son, he had to let him go. But this time the father saw his son, he took him back. And I know the same love this man had for his son, God has for me. Because God's love can't be repudiated by men. God's love can't be negated by people. God's love can't be stipulated by action. God's love can't be separated by our fault. God's love can't be terminated by the devil. God's love is consummated by Jesus. God's love is demonstrated by grace. God's love is appreciated by me. That's why I thank God for loving me. I thank God for blessing me. I thank God for saving me. I thank God for forgiving me. I thank God for lifting me. I thank God for sparing me. I thank God for saving me. I thank God because he brought me. Thank God because he taught me. Thank God because he kept me. Thank God because he never left me. Thank God because he brought me. Oh, he brought me. He brought me. He brought me. He brought me from a mighty long way. God bless you. Going in a new direction. Take care. I love all y'all. Be safe.